All right, everybody, you have just tuned in to the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast presented by Deck Roofing Incorporated of South Florida. And we are now about a month into the off season now, and things are definitely starting to get underway as far as the off season goes, with the Super Bowl, of course, happening this coming Sunday. Things for all of the other 30 teams have already gotten going, including our very own Pittsburgh Steelers. And last weekend was the Senior Bowl, which took on a whole lot of extra importance with really no combine this year. There's going to be pro days. There's going to be a lot of Zooming. You're going to hear lots of Zoom interviews, ladies and gentlemen. But tonight on the show, what we want to do is we're going to talk about some of the news of the week here first. But then what we want to do is dive into this very large group of free agents, pending free agents the Steelers have. Talk a little bit about, maybe who's back, who's not, maybe make arguments as to why they should or shouldn't, and so on and so forth. So that's what we're going to do. And joining me as always are Ben and Ian. And gentlemen, I assume you have a beverage very close to you.
Yep, I do.
What are we drinking tonight, Ian?
The Old Overholt, bottled in bond, 100
bottled
proof.
in bond. I like that.
Yes.
I like that. And Ben, what are you imbibing?
Basil Hayden and
Basil Hayden.
Yeah, and a nice hazy IPA.
Oh, very nice, very nice. By the way, I would be remiss if I did not mention the new Yuengling mango flavored beer that I have to try. And
I'm going to skip that, and you guys can tell me how it is.
I will tell you how it is. Hey, Mark came
Yeah.
to my house, and I gave him Icy Light Mango last year.
He did. Right.
Yes.
When I was there for the Eagles game in September, early October, I had a 12er waiting for me of mango. And now I can't wait for the Yuengling. I really enjoy Yuengling, so I'm sure it's a fine product. But be that as it may, let's dive into this. I guess the biggest news of the past week was the comments by Bruce Arians, the former Steelers offensive coordinator. And look, the guy has had the honor, privilege, good fortune, whatever you want to call it, to be around some pretty damn good quarterbacks. Tom Brady now, Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck, of course, Ben Roethlisberger. And as these interviews during Super Bowl week happen, you eventually get around to these types of questions. And a lot of Steelers fans were upset because it sounds very much like he's taken a shot at Ben by saying he's really not into the hard work and the watching the tape and all that. He just wants to go play. So, Ben, I'll go ahead and start with you. I mean, what did you take from this, and were you really surprised by it?
No, I wasn't surprised at all. Arians is an idiot, and he always has been. And don't get me wrong, he's not an idiot when it comes to football, although he sucked at that when he was in Pittsburgh too. But he doesn't think before he speaks. Listen, in Bruce Arians' own twisted little fucked up way, he was trying to pay Ben a compliment. Basically, what he was saying was, that guy just has a certain grit that he knows that he's going to go out there and he's going to beat you. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't want to get into the minutia of all of that. He doesn't want that. He wants to get the overview, and then he wants to go out and just beat you because he knows he can. Mm-hmm. And he compared him to Andrew Luck in that same light. So in Arians' view, what he was doing was he was paying Ben a compliment. Ben is also his friend. But Arians doesn't stop and think. As many years as he spent in Pittsburgh, as well as he knows the Pittsburgh media and he knows Pittsburgh fans, and he knows how Ben is going to have to answer questions about this and it's going to get nitpicked over and over and over again, he still runs his mouth and says dumb shit without thinking. And this is the thing about the guy that I just can't stand. And yeah, I am biased. I don't like him. I did not like him when he was an offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh, but I hate all offensive coordinators, so whatever. The point is, though, just that the guy's an idiot. This doesn't have anything to do with football. It just has to do with human nature and thinking before you speak.
Speaking of hating offensive coordinators, Ian.
Yes. What's up?
What was your take on this? Big deal? Much ado about nothing? Where do you fall on it?
So Bruce Arians hasn't been a coordinator in Pittsburgh, or hasn't been associated with Pittsburgh for a decade. I mean, 2011 was his last year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how much does he actually know about Ben's preparation? How much has Ben changed from, the kid who was still a relatively young quarterback in 2007 when Arians became offensive coordinator through 2011 when he left? Has Ben progressed and grown in the last decade? Probably a little bit, but I mean, anyone who watched Ben play in those Arians years knew that it was a schoolyard offense. I mean, their best plays during Arians' tenure was when Ben shook off a sack and improvised something and chucked the ball down the field to somebody. I mean, they weren't plays that Arians drew up, and that was my big complaint against him, was that he couldn't draw up plays, he couldn't game plan, he couldn't design anything. It was a schoolyard offense when he was here, and maybe some of that's Ben. I mean, we saw a little bit of that this year with Randy Fiechner, when Ben was like, "Yeah, I just went out there and was basically drawing plays in the dirt. I told this guy to run here, and he ran there, and I threw him the ball, and it was a touchdown." So. And Ben does that really well. He does that schoolyard stuff very well. So, I mean, I wasn't surprised at all by Arians' comments, because I was like, oh, yeah, that kind of fits, Ben's persona of, I just want to go out there and play schoolyard ball and beat you. But I think in a sense also, Ben has grown and matured over the last decade since Arians has been in Pittsburgh as well. So, I don't know if those comments were entirely fair to the Ben Roethlisberger we know in 2021 or 2020. They may have been true in 2011, but that was 10 years ago. So it is what it is. But our Ben was absolutely right that Arians doesn't think when he speaks. The media loves him because they always get a good quote from him.
Yes,
but it's I said this before and I'll say it again. He's a mediocre offensive coach who's been blessed with having some of the best defenses in the league during his career.
That too.
And once again this year, I mean, his defense is 6th in total defense and 8th in scoring defense. He's had a top 10 defense much, much more often than he's had a top 10 offense. And for a guy who's supposedly an offensive guru, that doesn't speak a whole lot. I mean, there was a quote that came out this week where Todd Bowles said, yeah, Bruce basically just lets me call the defense. The only thing he says is, blitz more often and, come after him more, so,
yeah.
But I mean, Bowles is a very good defensive coach.
Yes, he is.
And not a very good head coach, but very good defensive coordinator. And something Mark and I were talking about a little bit beforehand was how, there are a lot of guys who are not good head coaches, but are really, really good coordinators. And if you can find those guys, like Mike Munchak was not a good head coach, but he was a great offensive line coach and a great run game coordinator. So sometimes it's just finding guys that, you get them in the right position for what they're best at. And that's when you really get good coaching.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree with both of what you're saying. I mean, if I'm a media member, Arians is a great interview because you're going to get something that is going to catch fire. It's just the way he is. It's just the way he is.
We talked about that when Scarpino was on the show.
Yeah. Ryan did and I think you said this before we started recording. He did so without prompt.
It wasn't just that he did. I clarified his remarks because he was paraphrasing and trying to be nice. And I said, no, the media liked Bruce Arians because they knew they'd always get a juicy quote out of him.
Sure.
He would always say something without thinking about it. And media members like that. They're like, yeah, this is great. This guy's being honest. He gives us something to write. Well, yeah, but it creates problems for the team. And I've never been a huge guy on this is a distraction and blah, blah, blah. And, when Juju was dancing this year, I really didn't give that big a shit about it. I thought it was disrespectful and unnecessary, as we've talked about here before, but I didn't think it was that big a deal. No. When a coach says something dumb, it is a legitimate distraction.
Yeah.
It does create a lot of questions that will not go away because coaches are leaders.
Well, it just resonates more.
Idiot.
Yeah, and he mentioned the the hard work that Brady and Manning put in, and I had an opportunity to work a football camp about 10 years ago. And one of the guys there was a former Western Michigan quarterback who had actually just kind of ended his NFL career. which was very brief. He bounced around, and one of the teams he was with the Colts when Peyton was there. And he was telling us kind of during the break in the action of the camp about some of the just little things that Manning used to do. He would literally put a ladder behind himself, and then he would put a camera on it and then drop back. And after each drop back and throw, he would go back and look at the tape, and he was focusing on his feet. Where were his feet? And literally, this quarterback was telling me, if his feet were even so much as 6 inches off, he would get pissed off and go right back to it and just keep doing it. My point in saying that is that players are different. There are some guys that put in that type of time and that type of effort. There are other guys that just want to go play. They put in the time off the field, and then they just want to go do it. And it's a different way. It's everybody learns different. Everybody plays different, and I don't know. But yeah, Arians is definitely a walking quote machine. If you're in the media, that's for damn sure. This weekend, guys, we hope that Donnie Shell
loses.
Well, be that as it may.
Hope that Tom Brady loses, yes.
Yes, we do. I think I speak for many in Steelers Nation for that. Alan Faneca, we hope, will join Donnie Shell and Troy Polamalu and Coach Cowher going into the Hall of Fame. Of course, they did not get the opportunity because of the pandemic this past year. Ian, is it Faneca's time? I mean, I still to this day believe he was absolutely hosed by Mawai getting in, but I'm over that, and now it's time that he gets in here. What are your thoughts?
It's been time for years. I mean, the dude was a 6-time All-Pro, 9-time Pro Bowler in a 13-year career. I mean, he basically was an All-Pro. Okay, so he was an All-Pro in 6 out of 7 years from 2001 to 2007, and the only year he wasn't was 2003 when they had so many injuries on the line they had to move him to tackle instead of guard, and he was willing to take one for the team and be like, yep, I made All-Pro at guard the last 2 years, but you need me at tackle? Sure, I'll go play tackle for you. So that was the only year he didn't make All-Pro.
It was a second-year All-Pro. He was a second-team All-Pro that year.
Yeah, but okay.
He made All-Pro, but he was second team.
Yeah.
Which is still incredible considering he was playing a different position.
Right. So at any rate, 6 first-team All-Pros. I mean, you can't find a better guard in the 2000s than Faneca. He's been hosed the last couple of years. He's been due for a while and should have been in before. And on a personal note, my one regret as a Steelers fan is that I never bought an Alan Faneca jersey. So yeah, he deserves to be in. He should get it. He should have gotten in 2 years ago. Definitely gotten in last year. And he should get in this year. It's past time for him.
Well, speaking of the jersey, Ian, I've heard there are a few Chinese sites out there that can probably do that for you for about $27.
Oh, I'm sure there are. Yeah.
Now you might get orange sleeves and red numbers, but hey, what the hell? Ben, I mean I know where your feelings are on this, but I'll still ask you about it anyway. I mean, if he doesn't get in, what in the hell would be the reason?
I don't have the slightest fucking idea.
I mean, I'm worried about Boselli. Everybody's on Tony Boselli's jock.
Why?
I don't know either. I don't get it.
The guy had a stunted career. He was constantly hurt. He was a 5-time Pro Bowler. He made 3 All-Pros. He was a very good player when he was healthy, but he didn't even play as long as Gale Sayers.
No, that's a great
Faneca, 9 Pro Bowls, 6 first-team All-Pro nods, 1 second-team All-Pro nod. So he made 7 All-Pro teams in 13 years. Hutchinson, who's in 7 Pro Bowls, 5 first-team All-Pros. Uh-oh.
Maggie, we're upset too.
I know. Yeah.
Boselli, 5 Pro Bowls, 3 first-team All-Pros. Mawai, 8 Pro Bowls, 3 first-team All-Pros.
Yeah, well,
there's no stat for offensive linemen, but this guy made more All-Pros then all these guys, and 2 of them are in the Hall of Fame already. What the hell? Aren't these the same voters? Aren't a lot of these guys the same voters? Why is this even up for debate? And why does Ed Bouchette still present for these guys?
That's exactly where I was going next, Ben. Uncle Ed is a wonderful guy and everything, but he's not the most convincing or charismatic presenter when presenting these players. And let's be honest, some of them, it's been a no-brainer. Jerome Bettis, for example, you could just walk up there and say, yeah, I think he should be in and sit down. But with Faneca, it has taken something, and it's just not, the message just isn't getting across. But, I will go back to Bruce Arians, who was asked about Faneca this week, and literally said he's the best pulling guard I've ever been associated with. And I mean, you've all seen the play with Willie Parker running the 74 yards for the TD in Super Bowl 40. I mean, that is one of the most beautiful things you'll ever see in offensive line play.
Steve Hutchinson was watching it.
Yes, he was. That's a great point. He was watching it. I think he gets in this weekend, and I'm really, really excited, hopefully, to be talking about it next week on the podcast, that he'll be going into the Hall. The Steelers also finally closed up a hole in the offensive coaching ranks when they brought aboard Mike Sullivan. And I know Ian, who's taking care of his little one right at the moment here, I'm sure he has a Penguins joke, because if you don't know this, the head coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins is also Mike Sullivan.
Basically, the Steelers' power play is now going to suck. And, even on undermanned plays, they're still not going to score. Just going to be a giant pain in the ass, man. I'm so pissed. Not that Mike Sullivan?
Yeah, wrong one. But I guess this means now the Pirates will have to find a Mike Sullivan just to kind of complete the trio.
Is there any Mike Sullivan who doesn't go by Sully?
That's a great point. I actually had a buddy in college named Mike Sullivan, and he was Sully, and that's just how it works. I don't even know. It almost seems like a crime to call somebody that's Mike Sullivan something other than Sully, but I digress. This is a guy, he's a little older, graduate of the West Point Military Academy, of course, U.S. Army. And that's where he has been the last couple of years. And this guy's a former coordinator. He was a coordinator with the Giants and the Buccaneers. He was a quarterbacks coach in the NFL. So, and again, I think sometimes quarterback coaches, fans kind of look at them and maybe overvalue what it is that they do. And Ben, what really is the role of the quarterback's coach when you already have, let's say, the offensive coordinator and stuff?
Well, I think they did bring him in because he's got that experience as a coordinator, and it gives someone on the Canada staff some carte blanche to make some suggestions.
Sure.
For a guy who's never been a coordinator in the NFL. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was a piece of it. That was the thought process. But really, the quarterback coach's job is to come in and develop the young quarterbacks. And that's primarily what he is there to do, to work with Mason and Haskins and hopefully Josh Dobbs.
Right.
And I hope he comes back. And, let those guys work it out amongst themselves and kind of see where things go as far as the depth chart lines up. My feeling is that Ben Roethlisberger will come back. I don't see a guy like Sullivan coaching up Roethlisberger a lot.
No, I don't either.
My understanding is that when Fichtner was let go, that Ben was not upset, that he understood that changes needed to be made. And he was practical about it, even though he and Fichtner were buddies. So I think that he'll take direction well. I'm not concerned about that. But I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of direction given by Sullivan to Roethlisberger other than, hey, I want you to run this drill right now, and then this drill later, and now we're going to scrimmage. Run this.
Right. Right. Ian, Mike Sullivan, the new Steelers quarterback coach, veteran guy, West Point grad. Ben just kind of was talking a little bit about what exactly does the QB coach do. What are you looking for from this guy coming in?
Well, I hope that he and Penguins head coach Mike Sullivan have a Clint Eastwood style shootout sometime because this town ain't big enough for two guys named Mike Sullivan. But in seriousness, other than that, I think Ben was right that, the quarterback's coach doesn't really do a whole lot. We've talked a lot about how the offensive line coach has typically been the run game coordinator also, whereas the quarterback's coach is usually not the passing game coordinator. That falls more on the offensive coordinator itself.
Right.
I think Matt Canada had some increased input this past year just because the Steelers were kind of grooming him to be potentially the offensive coordinator and waiting, wanted to see what he brought in, and obviously they liked it enough to make him the offensive coordinator. But at the same time, I don't think that Sullivan necessarily is going to have that big of an input on the game plan. I think it's going to be more on developing the young guys. That being said, I do like the fact that Sullivan has been an offensive coordinator previously because he brings that experience and knows, what his role is as quarterback's coach and how that can support the broader scope of the offense.
So maybe the bigger question, however, though, Ian, is which Mike Sullivan holds on to his current position longer?
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
That's a great question because the Penguins are like,
yeah.
The Penguins are so frustrating right now.
I couldn't resist.
Yeah.
Given the fact that the Penguins have obviously changed, we're switching rules here, but they've got a new GM, or they're going to, and you have to wonder what else is going to change. They are. Yeah. Sullivan's only 54.
I thought he was a little older than that.
No, he's 54.
Okay.
Yeah, he just turned 54, in fact.
Okay. One other thing I wanted to get to, guys, before we start looking at this long list of free agents for the Steelers is former defensive back for the Steelers, JT Thomas, made a comment today, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Well, he said the defense is good, but it doesn't have a leader. It lacks leadership. Ben, is he right? Is he wrong? Is he somewhere in the middle? I don't know. What do you think?
I am of the opinion that the leadership on this team could be better. That there have been too many lapses in intensity on game days. And I, generally speaking, attribute that to leadership. When you've got a Joey Porter out there generating emotion, when you've got a guy like James Harrison, and they had so many leaders on that defense, Ferrier, even Woodley in his own way, Polamalu, who was more of a quiet guy, just worked, Ryan Clark. You had a lot of guys who talked a lot and backed it up on that defense, and their intensity was never low.
No.
And there have been lapses on this unit. There have been times when they could not get a stop when they really needed to. And, I think they're the better unit of the two between the offense and the defense. They really are. And they contributed more this season than the offense did, in my opinion, even on that wonderful 10-game run where the offense averaged 29.8 points. I thought the defense was even better. But then when the offense stumbled, the defense couldn't pick it up, and that was what we needed. We needed the defense to say, hey, it's no problem. We got you guys. Figure it out. Right the ship over there. In the meantime, we got you. We can work it out. I mean, I'll give you an example. In 1976, the Steelers had an amazing defense. They had 4 shutouts.
Yeah.
In a 14-game NFL season, they had 4 shutouts in the NFL. I mean, that just doesn't happen. And it was because the offense was injured, was injury riddled,
horrible injuries
up and down, and they just couldn't get out there and score any points. So the defense took it upon themselves to try and win some games. And Steelers went to the playoffs that year, and they got eliminated early because
they were without Franco, Blyer. They
were without Franco and Blyer and a couple of offensive linemen, and they went down early. But that defense was great and could step up, and this defense, as great as it is from a talent standpoint, isn't quite there. And I attribute that to locker room leadership, and it's disappointing because this is a team that should have that. And you need more than one guy. I'm not putting all this on Cam Hayward,
right?
The defensive captain. You need more than one guy out there who sets the tone. And they just don't have that yet, and they got to work to develop it. That said, I think the leadership on the offense is even worse. So.
Well, yeah, that might be a discussion for a further podcast for sure. But Ian, you and I chatted before we started recording. I mean, where do you fall on Thomas's comments of leadership here?
Yeah, when a guy who hasn't been on the team or as a coach, as a player, or in the locker room for a significant period of time makes a comment, I don't put a whole lot of stock in it, just because they don't see the day-to-day. They don't know what goes on behind the scenes. They're looking at it from, a 10,000 foot view of, this is what I knew when I was there, and this is, what I see out on the field now. This is what I see on television, but, it's not really an insider's perspective. So I don't put a whole ton of weight on it. That being said, obviously the defense took a significant decrease after Devin Bush went down with an injury, especially in the run defense. And also, the pass defense took a hit after Bud Dupree went down. We had a variety of other injuries too, right? We talked a bit about how, there's only so many injuries at a position that you can absorb before your level of production starts to take a hit. And usually that number is 2. And when we had to play games with, we traded for Avery Williamson, but when Avery Williamson and Marcus Allen were your starting inside linebackers, essentially, there was going to be a somewhat significant drop-off there. When both Joe Hayden and Steven Nelson were hurt, there was a somewhat significant drop-off there. And I'll include Mike Hilton in that too. Hilton missed a few games as well. I mean, we're in nickel defense over 70% of the time, 75% of the time anyways. So Hilton's essentially a starter out there.
Right.
That when 2 of those 3 guys went down, there was a somewhat significant drop off. So, I think there's a difference between leadership and, expecting backups to play like starters. You can get serviceable play for a short amount of time out of backups, but they're backups for a reason.
Yeah, and Ben alluded to the fact that you have different types of leaders. Troy was obviously very quiet and led with his play and his actions, and then you had the Joey Porters of the world who were very, very vocal and stuff. And Cam, I think is a vocal guy. Can be a fiery guy. I think TJ Watt has those capabilities. On the back end, I think Minka is interesting to me. He's obviously a tremendous player. He's made a huge difference back there. I don't know how vocal he is as a leader, and I think maybe that's something. Maybe that JT Thomas is
not a vocal guy.
No, he doesn't strike me as such. And,
Cam has described him as occasionally being mute.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that is not exactly leadership. In the style that many people believe it should be in the game of football. But
that's kind of how David DeCastro was when he first came into the league too. I mean, let's not forget that Minka's still a relatively young guy on a defense that has some older veterans on it as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. I do want to remind everybody that you are listening to the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast presented by Deck Roofing, which serves Broward and the southern Palm Beach counties, whether it's commercial, residential, multifamily, condos. Contact Deck Roofing today by visiting deckroofing.com. Guys, there's a long list of free agents here, and we know there are some that the discussion will take probably all of about 12 seconds, and then there are others that will take much longer. So I'm just going to get these out of the way here and just start rolling. And I got my list in front of me, and I pulled it right off of
Over the cap.
No, I used Spot Track this time.
Oh, why?
No, I don't know. It just came up first. Normally I go to OTC.
Good.
So no offense, guys. No offense.
No. Spot Track is no.
Yeah. Well, anyway. So outside linebacker, Mr. Bud Dupree is 28 years old, and he's
Not
coming off an ACL, and Ben throws his hat into the ring immediately. Not coming back. Ian, where are you at with Bud?
Yeah, not only is he not coming back, but the estimation that somebody threw out there a week or so ago,
John Clayton, that he would sign for somewhere in the range of $6 million is absolutely insane. Dupree's going to get $17 million plus, maybe $18 million per year.
Let's play Clayton's game for a second, and let's just say things go horribly bad and nobody wants to sign Bud within the first week to 10 days of free agency, and he has to sign a 1-year deal. Okay. Where do you put the valuation on that?
I would say, and Ian, I'll let you get this because I'll be quick. I definitely say it's still more than $6 million.
A lot more.
Yeah, go ahead, Ian.
I mean, Bud's deal this year was 15.8, and granted, it was on a franchise tag deal, but it's still gonna be. I mean, worst case scenario, he gets a Jadeveon Clowney 1-year deal at $13 million.
I agree.
Yeah,
and Dupree has had better production than Clowney over recent years as well. So I agree. He's a similar age. The deals I was looking at as potentially quote unquote comparable deals were the Trey Flowers deal that he got from Detroit, which was $90 million total, averaged $18 million a year. I don't think he'll get in the Von Miller range. The Chiefs were a little bit crazy to pay Frank Clark $20 million a year.
A little,
okay, a lot. But yeah, I think that the D Ford deal that the 49ers gave him at $17 million a year.
Yeah, I mean,
somewhere between D Ford and Trey Flowers.
Look at Matt Judon and Zadarius Smith.
Well,
Neither one of those guys.
Judon's on a franchise tag.
Okay, well, regardless. Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying, average per year, this is ridiculous.
Oh, it's yeah.
Eric Armstead, $17 million a year. Really?
Well, it's become the quarterback of the defense in terms of the financials, hasn't it?
In terms of financials, that and corner.
Yeah.
So 17 to 18 million seems about
Marcus Lawrence, $21 million a year.
Dallas is insane. Don't count them.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so we seem to be in consensus here.
The other side of it is it only takes one, right? It only takes one to do a stupid deal, and
you
have teams like Oakland and Dallas out there that will do stupid things. So
right, yeah. And supposedly Tennessee is looking at Bud, or we're looking at Bud. They are
one of the suitors.
Yeah, and if things are still going well and his knee checks out, they're going to pursue him.
Yeah.
So I agree with Ian. It's going to be in excess of $13 million a year, even if he has to sign a 1-year deal. And if it's a long-term deal, it's going to be more like the $18 to $20 million a year range. The Steelers aren't signing him. He's gone.
And I will agree with that. Let's move on to inside linebacker Avery Williamson, who came over in a trade from the New York Football Jets after Devin Bush went down. Ian, where do you fall on Avery Williamson?
He's gone. Robert Spillane is an exclusive rights free agent and was better than Williamson. Yep. You can get Spillane for dirt cheap. Yep. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if you got to take a hard look at Vince Williams' contract too, because Vince Williams has 1 year left on his deal. He's getting up there in age, and you could potentially save $4 million against the cap by cutting him. And considering they won't cut him. but I doubt they'd extend him either. He may be a candidate for them to ask him to take a pay cut. But it's Vince.
Well, let's do the 1 year guy left. Let's do the 1 year left guys next week.
Yeah. What I'm saying is, when you're looking at the inside linebacker position holistically, obviously Devin Bush is your anchor, but then your other guy, do you say, hey, we can get a comparable production out of Spillane as a starter than we could out of Vince Williams for pennies on the dollar? Maybe you think about cutting Vince Williams and just keeping Spillane, but Williamson's definitely gone.
Okay. Williamson is gone. I agree with Ian completely. For two reasons. One, they look at it from the standpoint that they're not going to be able to pay him. He made $3.5 million this year. He's going to be looking for more than that. Yeah. They don't have the cap space to have a backup linebacker who's fourth or fifth in the rotation, who's making that kind of money, and they don't really need him enough to forego the potential compensatory compensatory draft pick they're going to get in return when he leaves. And it's not going to be a great pick. It'll be like a 6.
It'll be 6 or 7. Yeah.
It'll be like a 6, but it's something for that guy. And they traded a 5 to get him. So they want to get something back. I think he's gone.
I agree. I will say this only in his defense. I don't even know if that's the right term. I thought once he got comfortable in the defense, he played better. That does not mean that I'm suggesting he's kept around. I'm just saying he had a couple of games there with double-digit tackles, and he played his tail off. But yes, I agree with both of you. I don't think he's back.
I would put Williamson as slightly better than Mark Barron in how he played, but still not worth coming back.
Okay.
Way better than Mark Barron in how he played.
I was going to say, I'm going to go better than Mark Barron.
Way better than Mark Barron. Mark Barron was embarrassing. But he's not coming back.
No.
Al?
No.
What about Al?
Yeah, Al Villanueva is 33 years old, gentlemen, and he is coming off of not just one, but 2 really average to below average campaigns. Ben, your thoughts on the future of Captain Al?
Gone.
Yeah. There really doesn't need to be much of a discussion here. Ian, do you feel the same?
Yes. And Villanueva made $6 million as an average on his last contract, which was actually pretty cheap. I mean, I think he was like 21st or 22nd highest paid tackle in the league, which was about where his production was.
Right.
He made a couple Pro Bowls off of fan popularity, but he was compensated around where his production was. But we need to get younger on the line. We need to get better on the line. Right. And he got beat way too often. And,
I mean, and part of it is you hit the nail on the head a second ago, Ian. We need to get younger along the line. They need an infusion of young talent along that whole line. And that's going to be one of the spots they're going to look at. You got a guy who's 33 and in decline and wasn't really all that great a tackle to begin with.
No.
And is playing below his own standard now and apt to get worse. You don't extend guys like that.
No. And I don't think that he's a guy, because I've seen some talk about, well, if he takes a real low salary, do you keep him around? I don't even think you keep him around, guys. I think it's done.
I tend to agree with you. I mean,
I just don't see it.
Anyway, let's open another beer.
Definitely. These next 3 are I think, fairly, I guess, debatable. The first is going to be Matt Filer. Maybe I'm making more of it than I should be. Ben is immediately in the camp of gone. Ian, where are you on Mr. Filer?
I think he's gone. I think someone will pay him more than we can afford. Good. Let's not forget that we're going in here at least $20 million over the cap, potentially $30 million wherever the cap falls. That we've got to slash cap space before we can even talk about signing guys. And Filer got outplayed by Kevin Dawson at guard this year, and they'd be stupid to keep him at guard and hold Dotson back because Dotson needs to play. So it's either you move Filer back to tackle or you let him go and maybe you get we're going to get a ton of comp picks next in 2022. Just, talking about all these guys. I mean, Dupree probably nets us a third. Juju nets us a third or a fourth. And a couple of these other guys might get us some late round ones too. So yeah, we're gonna cash in pretty big time.
Ian thinks Juju's leaving too.
Hey, we haven't gotten him yet.
People are gonna start crying.
I know.
In a draft
where you just keep jumping around all over the place.
Here. Okay, well, let me finish my point here. In a draft where we're gonna have to get younger at a lot of positions, we need a lot of depth. I published an article this evening on just our roster outlook heading into this off season, and not only do we have 24 players that are either unrestricted free agents or restricted or exclusive rights free agents this year, but we've got 17 more players that only have 1 year left on their deal. So we're going to see a massive roster overhaul in the next couple of years. So having all these comp picks puts us in a really good position. And let's not forget that with the last CBA, you can trade comp picks now.
Yes, you can.
So we'll also be in a very good position to potentially make a move up the draft board if we need to go find a quarterback of the future.
I agree. My thoughts on Filer, the only way I see him back is maybe as a tackle, but even then I think it's a stretch. I agree that I think another team will pay him well more than what the Steelers would like to offer him. So I'd
rather save it right tackle. I mean, my God, he's terrible at guard.
I was stunned at how poorly he was at guard.
I can't believe how bad that was.
Yeah, it was not pretty. The next guy, guys, is Mike Hilton. And I suspect we're going to have a little bit more indecision here. Ben, what do you think?
It's a coin toss. I think they're going to sign either Cameron Sutton or Mike Hilton, and I can't tell you who it's going to be. I can't even say for certain who I would rather it was.
That's exactly where I'm at.
Because Sutton is so much better in coverage. He really is. He's a very good cover player, and it's a passing league now. But Sutton is not good in run defense, and the Steelers' nickel corner needs to be a good run defender. He needs to be a good tackler. And that guy just isn't. Where Mike Hilton is good at that, he's good at blitzing. He's not great in coverage, especially in trail. He's just not. And I don't know. It's a coin toss for me between those two guys. I'm not sure what direction they're going to go, but I think they're going to sign one or the other.
And before I get to Ian, just Hilton is 27, Sutton is 26, so age is not a massive factor here either. Ian, where do you think this is going?
Yeah, I think Ben hit the nail on the head. Hilton is a better tackler. Sutton is better in coverage. Hilton can't play on the outside, whereas Sutton could play on the outside. He filled in there a little bit this year. I think that gives Sutton a little bit of an edge for them re-signing him. If I had to, I agree. I think they can only afford to re-sign one. If I had to put odds on it, I'd say like 60% Sutton, 40% Hilton. I mean, basically a coin toss with a slight edge to Sutton, both because of his ability to play outside and B, his age being slightly younger. So yeah, I think Sutton has a slight edge, but I'm curious about what Hilton's value on the market will be, because he's not a great cover corner, and he's a really good blitzer off the slot, which we've seen. He's good in short areas. He's really good, especially at diagnosing plays, especially like swing passes to running backs or screen passes and getting out and blowing that shit up. But he fits very well into what the Steelers want to do on defense and want out of that position. But I'm not sure if another team could get the same production out of him. So, I mean, maybe he goes and signs for big money somewhere and he doesn't produce very much, which is possible. We've seen that with players before. Nnamdi Asomugha was a great example of that he was a stud in Oakland and then signed in Philadelphia and had to move from a man to a zone system and was terrible.
Yeah.
So, it's some of it is can what the player does well match your defensive system? And Hilton's a very specific kind of player.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
Well.
It's a really good point.
I'm with you guys. I'm torn. And we've kind of alluded to this a little bit tonight too. I mean, the way that they're paying corners, is it at all possible, Ben, that both of these guys are gone because they just get two better offers elsewhere?
I think that Sutton is more likely to be poached, and that's the thing that bothers me about this decision is that his market is going to be higher than Hilton's
because of the coverage
skills. Because of his versatility, one, and second because of his cover skills. I still think I never want to see Cameron Sutton on the outside. Never. As soon as if I was an offensive coordinator and Cameron Sutton was the outside corner, I would run the ball on sweeps as often as I possibly could because I know I could get past the corner.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let me go ahead and discuss the 34-year-old Tyson Alualu. I mean, the guy has been a stalwart since coming over here. And has more than held his own. Ian, where do you think they go with Tyson?
Honestly, I think it's either they try and re-sign him or he retires. If he wants to continue playing, given his age, you should try and bring him back because he played really, really well this year as that nose tackle position. And the nose tackle doesn't get a ton of snaps, but he has the versatility that he could also kind of step into the rotation in the nickel defense, the two down lineman sets. I mean, he played 44% of the snaps this year, which was pretty darn good for, a nose tackle position that in previous years had played, somewhere in the range of 20% of snaps. So, Alu played really, really well. We kind of thought that the nose tackle spot might be a weakness with losing Javon Hargrave, but I think he was actually better than Hargrave was, especially against the run. So if he wants to keep playing, you could bring him back on a relatively cheap contract. I mean, given his age, you could get him for essentially close to a veteran minimum deal, I would think, or a 2-year, $4 million deal somewhere around that frame. That he would be cheap to bring back and gives you quality snaps on defense.
Agreed, Ben.
Well, I want to remind everyone that Tyson Alualu doesn't only play nose tackle; he also plays defensive tackle. When they have
he's
lined up in a 4-man front.
Yep.
And started some games actually there this year. So, I would agree with Ian in so much as he did play better than Hargrave versus the run. He's not as good a pass rusher. That doesn't mean that he's a bad pass rusher. It just means he's not as good as Hargrave.
Agree.
Hargrave is one of those guys who can exploit one-on-ones and is good at getting into the backfield. Alualu, though, I agree with what Ian said, and in so much as I don't see him having a very strong market. I think he's a guy that the Steelers will be able to sign at close to the veteran minimum. In which case he would only count about $850 versus their cap if they signed him to a veteran minimum deal with a maximum signing bonus, which I believe is $100,000 now.
That sounds right. I that's where I'm at too.
And he's 34, just turned 34. Yeah. He's going to be around for a while. I think if he's not playing with the Steelers this year, he's going to play someplace. I know the Steelers need that spot to be manned. If it's me, I re-sign the guy. I try to anyway.
I do too. I don't have a whole lot of faith in let's say Bugs or Davis right now to take either any of those roles.
And how the hell did Davis surpass Bugs anyway?
That again
Davis sucks.
Yeah, topic for another conversation. Okay, Zach Banner, 28 years old. Of course, the young man won the starting right tackle job, and unfortunately had the ACL tear in the season opener. Ben, I'll start with you. Is this a no-brainer that he's back, or is it a little more complicated than that?
Slightly more complicated than that, because he went into last season betting on himself, and he wanted the big contract, but he didn't get it. And then he tore his ACL after winning the starter's job. I know that Banner wants to be back in Pittsburgh, and I think he'll try and find a way to make it work. By the same token, it's going to be, how much are they going to pay him? Are they going to bring him back for another year at less than $2 million and then say, hey, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll pay you $2 million this year, and we'll see what happens in 2022. I don't know. But I've got a fairly high degree of certainty that he'll be back.
I do too.
I'm not certain, but I think so.
I'm pretty close to certain. I won't go that far. I just think he will be, but that's just me. Ian, what do you think with Banner?
Yeah, I think there's a pretty good chance that he's back. And I mean, I'll say this though, my worst case scenario for this team is that they don't address offensive line in the draft. They sign Banner, and they're like, oh yeah, we'll start, Chooks at left tackle, Dotson at left guard, Pouncey at center, DeCastro at right guard, and Banner at left or at right tackle. And hey, we're good. We don't need to draft anyone. That's like my nightmare scenario. I think it would be good if Banner was back, but I also think, I think a 1-year deal, another kind of 1-year prove it kind of deal. Let him compete with Chooks again, and kind of see where the chips fall. But also,
and who's your left tackle if they're competing?
One of them is left tackle, one of them is right tackle. I mean, maybe it's not.
It's
not a competition. But maybe, I mean, the real competition, honestly, should be your second or third round draft pick competing with one of these guys for a starting tackle spot, or maybe it's a first round pick.
I was just going to say,
please, baby Jesus, give us a first round tackle.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. If Pouncey retires, your first round pick has to be a center. Maybe. I don't want to relive the Sean Mahan experience.
How many centers have a first round grade right now, Ian?
Like one. Creed
like none.
Humphrey's as close as you'll get to it, but we'll talk about him down the road. Yeah. Well,
but he's probably a high second. I mean,
he's a high second. You're right. Well, you're right.
Not to get too far off the track here, but I agree with what you're saying, Ian. If Pouncey does in fact retire, then the priority does shift a little bit.
Yes, a little.
Well, but what I mean is, but they're not going to take a center at 24 if they don't really find him to be the best guy there, though. I don't think they will anyway.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay.
Can't go into the year with J.C. Hassenauer as your starting center either. I mean,
hey. We haven't gotten to J.C. Hassenauer just yet.
Hey,
so
wait a minute. What about Sean Mahan? Maybe we can get him to come out of retirement.
That was, oh my goodness. Like, he spent more time on his back looking up at the sky than any lineman I've ever seen play. Like, it was like he snapped the ball and just fell over backwards. And I was like, sure.
Sean, if you're listening, I don't know if I pronounced your name correctly, but whatever.
Yeah,
you don't work there anymore anyway, so it's fine.
All right, here's a quick one. Cassius Marsh.
Gone. Don't want him back either. He sucked.
Yeah, I like this.
He does suck, and he's coming back.
I like this.
They're going to re-sign him.
I think they'll re-sign him on the cheap in hopes that maybe a rookie knocks him out or something. But he's got a lot of length. I'll give him that. But I
don't like him. I think he sucks balls. But did I say that out loud? I did.
Yeah, well,
they'll sign him again to like a rookie minimum kind of a deal.
Something like that.
Rookie minimum. But a minimum salary kind of a deal, and say, hey, and he won't get signed right away. It'll be like an a late April, May kind of a signing.
Yeah,
Hopefully
I
1
agree.
year, close to the minimum or at the minimum.
Yeah, if they don't have to bring him back, they won't. But I can see what you're saying.
If I had to pick, I'd rather have Jay Elliott back because he actually showed some things.
I like Jayrone Elliott.
Well, let's talk about Mr. Jayrone Elliott because he's also on the list here. He's 30 years old, believe it or not.
What?
And yes, he is, kids.
Get
30.
out.
Yeah, he's 30 now.
Wow.
And
I did not know that.
He did some things at the end of the year. I think he's the Steelers obviously like youth.
That Cleveland game?
Cleveland game. Yeah.
When he was, especially when he was playing standing up.
Yeah, I think he's back. I think they're gonna give him a shot to be part of that rotation. Maybe I'm a little overly hopeful for him, but I think he's back. Ian? What do you think?
Oh, I'd much rather have him back than Marsh. Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
I would put him as a much higher priority.
Yeah. Ben, I can kind of tell where you're going, so I'll leave it there. All right. The crowd has been clamoring for this one, so let's get to it. Juju Smith-Schuster, wide receiver.
Gone.
25 years old. Oh, boy. Past the tissues.
Sorry.
I would love to have him back.
So would I.
On the open market, he's gonna get somewhere in the range of $14 to $15 million. I mean, maybe 13.
I think he might get 17. He's 24 years old. He is ascending. He's 25 now. Yeah, whatever. He's ascending. Yeah. This is the time to get this guy.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, though. I mean, Adam Thielen got 16.2, right? So, I mean, are you going to pay Juju more than Adam Thielen?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Fair.
Yes, I am. I'm going to pay him more than Adam Thielen, and I'm going to put him in an offense with a respectable quarterback. And not to say that Ben's not respectable, but I'm going to put him in an offense with a good quarterback and a good offensive line and other good pieces where he's not going to get doubled up, where the quarterback's going to have time to get him the ball, where he can make plays, where he's not throwing the ball on 2-yard routes.
Oh,
and they're going to go, hey, Juju, you were a 1,400-yard receiver.
Yeah.
Let's make you that guy again. And he's going to be, especially if he has a counterpart that's really talented too. If Juju goes in and he's playing with a really good number one again, oh my God, he's going to be a fantastic number two. And those guys get paid.
Yeah.
You do.
You want to know what the best case scenario for Juju is in that case?
What?
Yes.
Go to the Chargers, play with Justin Herbert, and have Keenan Allen as
Keenan Allen.
one.
Oh my God. Yeah, dude, that would be insane.
Well, and I hate to bring this into it, but I'm sure there's people in his ear about either going to L.A. or New York.
Well, I mean, his family's from L.A. too, so I mean, there's a natural connection there too.
Yeah,
for sure.
I agree. I think he's way out of our price range.
It isn't just that. It's a lot of things. My understanding is he wants to come back, and Ben wants him back, and the team wants him back, but they just don't know how to make it work. And Juju also is excited about the fact that he's finally going to get the big contract, and he's finally going to be, in a sense, recognized by his peers as one of those guys who makes the big money. And that's recognition. That's the way these guys, they're all competitive guys.
Yep.
That's the way they measure success is the way you're getting paid. And that's how you're recognized. And it's going to be difficult to keep him given those circumstances. And people keep talking about how he'll take a hometown discount. Okay, so let's just say he decides he's going to take a hometown discount, and he comes in and he's like, I'm willing to accept $15 million a year. The Steelers can't pay him.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You're talking a hometown discount of like $9 million a year to actually be able to even think about making it work. And that ain't happening. You want to talk about the union getting involved?
This whole fucking myth that the Steelers have so much cap room in 2022 they can make anything work. Guys, they only have 17 players under contract for 2022. You know where they have even more cap room? In 2023, when they only have 11 players signed. Enough with this nonsense. Enough.
All right. We all agree.
Bullshit.
Juju, we'd love him back, but he's not coming back.
I would so love him back.
Sean Davis.
That's an interesting one. I think he tests free agency again, but they might be able to bring him back. Yeah.
I agree. I think maybe he's back on a 1 year. You know, to be real honest with you, he wasn't terrible in the snaps that he got. I thought he was okay. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he was an all-pro. I'm just saying I think he was okay. I would not want to rely on him.
In the snaps that he played, but he was not great. He's much better when he's a regular rather than a backup.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just is.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see him back on an affordable deal. It would be wonderful to have safety depth.
Yep. That's what I'm thinking.
You know, we'll see.
What about Jordan Berry?
You know, they tried as hard as they could to get rid of him last year.
And they couldn't.
They couldn't, yeah.
But if they draft a punter?
Oh, Jesus. Well, sure. Why not just go for a 6th-round long snapper while you're at it?
Okay.
Yeah,
all right, here's the thing. If you draft a punter that's actually good, like that guy that Seattle drafted, that's worth it. That guy's awesome. If you draft a punter who sucks, then no, it's stupid. I mean, I'm personally the opinion that you never draft any specialists, right? You get them as undrafted free agent. Justin Tucker, best kicker in the league, undrafted free agent.
Yep.
So, you know, no, don't draft a punter. Don't waste a pick. That said, they can't seem to get away from Jordan Berry. So I would not sign him to anything more than like a minimum contract. I would definitely not sign him to anything close to what like punters are going for.
I'm telling you, he's got dirty pictures of Danny Smith chewing gum amongst other things. I don't know what it is. You know, but I'll say this too.
He was awful last year.
He was better this year. When he came back, he was better. But
he was better-ish.
He's always been good when it's warm and sucked when it's cold.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, at least he didn't drop any snaps this year, though.
At least he didn't try to run any snaps.
Maybe they should make him punt a giant walk-in freezer. We want you to practice in here.
What about Chris Wormley?
Gone. Fuck that guy. He sucks.
I can see why the Ravens got rid of him.
He might be back. I think he sucks too.
Yeah.
But
I'm just gonna go right back.
Trading a pick for that guy was an unwise decision.
I agree. If we celebrate Colbert for some of the good ones, that's one we can maybe.
And we got to punish him for the bad ones. And
for once, Ben was more diplomatic than me in a response.
Was I diplomatic about that?
Yeah, you said it was not a wise decision. And I said,
it wasn't.
That guy.
Yeah. All right.
What about Jordan Dangerfield?
He is a cat of 9 lives, man. He just
keeps 19 lives.
He is unbelievable. 31 years old. He is a special teams guru. Let's be honest. He's nothing more defensively than an in-the-box safety at best.
He is a good special teams player.
He's a great one. He
I
runs
wouldn't
the
say
show.
Great, but he's good.
No, but I mean,
he's not Steve Tasker. Let's put it that way.
Oh no. I mean, hey, Steve Tasker. He's on an island all by himself. That guy. I don't know. Do you bring him back? 31 years old.
Vet minimum deal. Why not?
He'll be brought back.
Yeah.
Would I bring him back? No, I wouldn't.
Okay.
I would move on. But I'm not making those decisions. He's coming back on a minimum deal.
And then the guy that makes me think of Bewitched, Danny Isadora.
Maybe.
He's 27 years old, but
they need depth on the line.
That's what I was thinking, Ian. Maybe you bring him back for a real cheap price and say, here, try to make it as a depth guy.
A vet minimum, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to skip Cam Sutton because I think we talked about him and Mike Hilton kind of the same time. And here's another one that I know is going to tug at the heartstrings. James Conner. Yeah. What do you think, Ben?
Nah, probably not. Only because I think that Conner is a little bit bitter with the fans, and I think that he can make a little bit more on the open market.
Yeah,
that somebody will think that they can make things work with Conner. Better than the Steelers did because when he has a respectable line in front of him, he's a pretty respectable back, or was. And I don't think the Steelers are going to spend money at running back this year. I just don't. I think that they're going to draft players along the line and at running back, and they're going to try and move on. And I do want to say that I think that when that James Conner was a free agent, what he was saying was we're gonna allow James Conner to test free agency. He wasn't saying James isn't going to be back next year. He was saying we're going to allow him to test free agency. And there's a difference there.
There is.
Okay. And Kevin Colbert has talked about this for years. When you allow guys to go out in the market and see what their value is, see what it is, and then come back and talk to you, they're happier with the contract that they get from you. There's less bitterness involved in that negotiation. Because it's not like they think they're doing you some kind of a favor by signing for what you offer. And that may end up being the case with James Conner. He may come back on the cheap, and it may be because when he gets out there on the open market, there just isn't a lot of demand.
Yeah. Ian, where do you fall on James?
Yeah, so, I mean, globally, there's not a lot of demand for running backs. Unless you're just an all-around stud like Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, you're not getting a big contract as a running back. If you look at guys probably around where Conner is on the open market, I mean, maybe he gets somewhere in the $2.5 to $5 million range. $3 to $5 million maybe. If you're looking at guys like Latavius Murray with the Saints, got a multi-year deal at $3.6 million. But I mean, Conner's been a good running back for us when he's healthy. It's just that when he's healthy part is a big factor. I mean, he missed 3 games last year and was limited in some other games because of injury. He missed 6 games in 2019. He missed 3 games in 2018. He missed 2 games in 2017. He hasn't been healthy for an entire year at all during his career. So, I mean, the old cliche is that your best ability is your availability. And anyone that signs him is going to be taking on that risk of, we're going to sign a guy who's been injury prone his entire career. And I mean, Conner's a great story. He's a local kid. I love his story. I'm happy he made it to the league. I'm happy he had the success he did. He had a Pro Bowl season one year, and he's been our best all around back. I mean, he can do it all. He can catch the ball in the backfield. He can block better than anyone else we have on the roster. And he's a capable runner when his line can block in front of him. But even with that, I don't think he's getting a $5.5 million deal like Todd Gurley got from the Falcons. So, he's probably looking at best case scenario in the high 3s, maybe 2.5 to 4, somewhere in that range. The Steelers probably can't afford that. I mean, maybe they could, but I think it's better to let him test the market, see what he can get, and if he wants to come back, then figure something out. But see what happens. I think there are teams out there like the 49ers that kind of prove that if you have a good system and a good structure to your running game, it doesn't really matter who your running back is. You can plug anyone in and they can have success.
I think he's, I echo what you said. He's a great story. And I'll say this too. I thought he played his ass off in the playoff game. I mean, he took some shots, catching the ball over the middle from Ben a number of times. And I'll never question the kid's heart and his ability to play hard. But yeah, when you're just not able to stay healthy, it really does limit, who wants you and for how much they're going to want you for. Ray McLeod. Ben?
He's back.
I see no reason why he wouldn't be. He's been the best returner we've had on a consistent basis, I guess, in a little while.
And he's good. He's not super valuable on offense, but he contributes on offense.
Yeah, he's kind of quirky on offense. Just once in a while, you get that big play out of him.
Right.
Yeah. Ian?
I agree that he's back. I mean, he's a restricted free agent, so you have some more control there. Yeah. But also, if Juju goes, we're going to need a slot receiver because you're basically going to have, Claypool's definitely starting on the outside. He's not going to the slot. Deontay Johnson's a better outside receiver than he is in the slot, even kind of given his body type. He's built like a slot receiver, but he's better at running the outside routes. And James Washington's always been better at running the outside routes. Yeah. So, you kind of have three outside receivers and no slot guy. And given Matt Canada's love of the motion, the jet sweep, that kind of stuff, that was what Ray McLeod did good. I think not only they re-sign him, he sees more snaps next year.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Let me get the last unrestricted free agent because I skipped him. Josh Dobbs. He's the last of the unrestricted free agents, Ben.
I hope he's back, but I'm really not sure.
It's right. Yeah.
We'll kind of see. But I really hope that Dobbs comes back because I think he's really smart.
Oh yeah.
I think if you put Josh Dobbs' brain into Mason Rudolph's body, you'd have a really good quarterback. Unfortunately, you have Mason Rudolph's brain in Mason Rudolph. And so you don't have a good quarterback there.
Alive.
Basically it's like, look, Dobbs knows where he wants to put the ball, but he can't get it there because he's not physically talented enough to do it.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Okay. And Rudolph is more physically talented, but he can't, he's not smart enough to see the field and read the defense and put the ball where it needs to be, which is why he sucks. Sorry, Mason Rudolph lovers. He sucks. Yeah. So Ben's caught a little buzz now and he's talking shit. Yeah, basically that's I really hope that Dobbs comes back, that he can be a long-term backup. But with Haskins in the fold now, I'm not certain that's going to be the case.
Agree. Ian, any thoughts quickly on Dobbs?
Yeah, I'd like to see him back. The Steelers typically carry 4 quarterbacks. They may wait to sign him until after the draft just to kind of see how the draft falls. If they draft a quarterback, it kind of depends on how they feel about Dwayne Haskins too. They obviously signed Haskins to a 0 risk deal of a reserve futures contract. So the question becomes, if they don't draft a quarterback, do you bring Dobbs back, have him kind of compete with Haskins for that third quarterback spot? And the other factor is what happens with the league's sort of COVID protocols going into next year. Do you continue having the extra large practice squad where you have extra guys? Obviously, we saw some teams, Denver, having to start a non-quarterback at quarterback because of what happened with their team. So if you continue with the extra large practice squads, you basically have to keep 4 quarterbacks, 1 on the practice squad. Does that become Dobbs? Does that become Haskins? Does it become somebody else? So I think the door's open for him to come in here and compete. It's just, does he want to compete for a 3rd spot, or does he think there's an opportunity out there for him to compete for a number 2 spot? But what we showed in the final regular season game against Cleveland was kind of a nice little wrinkle with him running a wildcat sort of quarterback spot. And Canada likes that kind of stuff. So I think he'd be the type of player that Canada would like to have as a gadget option. And even looking at some other teams last year, look at what Indianapolis did. That they brought in Jacoby Brissett in short yard situations and had him QB sneak it so that Phillip Rivers didn't have to sneak the ball. So it gives you another option if you have a quarterback that can do those kind of things. So I'd like to see him come back.
I agree. Let me get to the last the last 2 restricted free agents here. The first one is Gerald Hawkins. Ben, is his time about up now?
Nope.
No, think they'll be back?
They need tackle depth. He'll be back.
Okay. All
Actually,
right.
I thought he was an unrestricted free agent because they cut him last year and then re-signed him.
Unrestricted free agent, and I expect him to be back. He won't make a lot of money. There won't be a great deal of demand for Hawkins. It'll probably be a 1-year deal.
I had him as minimum. Okay.
Yeah, close to the minimum, but I expect him back.
All right. And then Ola Adeneye.
Yeah, you got to bring him back. He's your number 3 outside linebacker.
And he's going to make money this year. I mean, not big money, but about $3 million.
Yeah, they're going to sign him to probably a second-round tender as a restricted free agent.
Doubt that, but
what do you think? More
he was an undrafted free agent, so if you sign him as a original round,
somebody else can sign him and walk away with him. But if you sign him if you tender him as an RFA, you have right of first refusal.
That's true.
So if he goes out in the market and say somebody like the Patriots, who love to do this shit, make you overpay for your free agents, offers him a deal at way above market, you can say, yeah, we'll take the comp pick, or no, let's go ahead and let's match this.
I got 3 guys left here. These are exclusive rights free agents, which essentially means they have zero bargaining
JC
power.
Hassenauer?
Yeah, well, sure. Let's go with JC Hassenauer.
I hope they don't re-sign him, but they will.
I think they do.
They're going to bring him back because they need depth.
Yeah, they have to. Yep.
Asshole.
Okay, and then Marcus Allen.
I don't want him back, but they'll re-sign him.
I agree with
they'll
that.
bring him back. They'll tell him to gain weight and try and play linebacker, which is going to make him even slower. So Robert Spillane?
That's it.
Definitely back. 100% back.
Yeah, definitely
100% is right.
Yep.
And I would hope, I don't see it because this isn't the way the Steelers do business, but I would hope that they extend him at a respectable rate and don't pay him the exclusive free agent tender. But, we'll see.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You just don't know. In coming weeks, we'll talk a little bit more about the guys that have 1 year left on their deal, because there are plenty of those, and they definitely need to be discussed. But this has definitely been one of our longest shows as well, and many of you are probably running out of beer and alcohol just like we are. Any parting shots, Ian?
Fuck Tom Brady.
Yep.
All right.
Exactly. That's where I was going with it. Cheer for the other team. Fuck Tom Brady.
Cheer for the other team and boo that Tom Brady. Yeah. Let's get that guy out of there.
Fuck that guy.
All right. For Ian and Ben, this is Steel Dad. I'm signing off on the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast, presented by Deck Roofing Incorporated of South Florida. And now, for whatever reason, I can't seem to get my controls up here to stop recording.
This podcast will go on forever.
History of podcasts. This is weird. God, I hope it didn't stop at some point.
No, it still says recording.
Does it? Okay. I can't. I'll have to edit this out.
Move your cursor.
I trust me, I am.
All right. Well, say, hey, go Steelers, and let's sign off.
Okay, now I got it. All right, hold on. Here we go. No, that's not what I want either.
God damn it.
You guys realize how long we've gone? Hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, that's from when you started the call. You and I got on like 20 minutes before.
No, we started at 9:50, and it's 11:08.
So it's like an hour and
an
hour and 18 minutes.
Now that the listening audience has heard us banter about here for the last 45 seconds, that's it for the show. We'll talk to y'all next week. And hey, go Steelers.
Ravens suck.